I watched a couple of videos on it. Somebody was like, well, it's at a neutral field. It's not at a neutral field. Orlando is nowhere near a neutral field between the two teams. It's going to still be like 10,000 Miami fans and 80,000 Florida fans. Orlando is not that far from Gainesville.
Yeah.
It is still a good ways from Miami, and so it's still, to me, a home game for the Gators, even though it's not, in Gainesville. But what are your first thoughts, or what are your big thoughts about the game going into it, with the big game really for the ACC and the SEC, big clash there?
Yeah. You always like to see ACC SEC clash. It's good stuff. It always gets the blood flowing. I mean, you got the SEC that's pumped through the media all the time that everybody loves to hate, unless of course you're an SEC fan. And then we're trying to fight to prove we're relevant in the ACC, somebody other than Clemson. So it's obviously cool when you have a matchup like this. Two relatively highly regarded teams. Miami's a little bit down than more down than they've been the past couple of years. Florida's ranked number 10, incredibly overrated in my opinion, and I think the season will prove that out. But I think the thing to look at this season is they're losing a lot on the offensive lines. Again, offensive line. Okay, Florida lost 4 out of their 5 players. And heck, Jawan Taylor, I believe it was, that got drafted maybe number 35 overall, I think, third pick of the second round in last year's draft. So they lost a lot of talent on their offensive line. Miami, on the other hand, lost 3. So they're both pretty depleted lines, kind of starting fresh. And their quarterback situation, not a fan of either quarterbacks. Felipe Franks at least has some experience in the game. He's played some games and taken them to some good wins, but it's usually relied on their running game and not really Felipe Franks. And then Miami, of course, pulls the wild card and, names, I think it's Jarren Williams, I believe is his name, the freshman quarterback, over the other 2. So that kind of threw everybody for a loop. So, is the moment going to be too big for a freshman? Opening game against a big time team like Florida, or at least a highly ranked team, I guess just to say, a team with some history, or is maybe his kind of youthful, innocence and immaturity, going to kind of be enough for him to ignore all that kind of stuff and just play the game? We'll see how it goes. Right now, I'm looking for Florida to win the game, but I'm looking for Miami to kind of turn him over early a little bit. Felipe Franks, get a couple of turnovers, stay in the game, get it close to the end. I have Miami covering the spread, but I do have Florida winning the game.
A lot of people have that too. If you don't know the spread right now, Florida giving 7.5 points as of tonight. So you got them being more of a close game, but Florida still winning. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and I can see that. A lot of people are saying the same thing. For me, it all revolves around Felipe Franks as well. He's that guy like Kelly, Quack and Kelly like to say, is he going to be Felipe Franks or is he going to be Ballpark Franks? And, it depends on who shows up, right? Well, the past couple of games against good talent over on the Florida side, at the end of the year last year, he did really well. And so I feel like that he has the experience and the knowledge and the skills he was a highly recruited guy. I think he can do it. If you look at his last 4 games of 2018, all victories, averaged 215.5 passing yards, 44.3 rushing yards, along with 12 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions. If Franks has 250 plus yards of offense, 3 touchdowns, and at most 1 turnover, then I think the Gators will be in good shape. I agree with that statement as well. I think that if Felipe Franks can be the guy that they need, be that consistent guy, not turn the ball over. He doesn't have to have a ton of touchdowns. That's 4 games in 12 touchdowns. He doesn't have to have a ton, but that's a good amount. I feel like if he continues what he did last year into this year, I think he's going to be good. I think both the defenses are really good.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem there. There was some rumors that there might be some suspensions going on with Florida. I haven't confirmed that at all, so I don't know for sure. I don't like the guys that just go ahead and say Florida's going to win because SEC. Right, I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
I have to lean on that quarterback. We know a quarterback who's played, who's good, who has had a great end of last year, carrying that over into this year. I have to trust that more than I trust Jarren Williams. And everybody's talking about Dan Enos trained up Tua to be what he was. I'm not buying that at all. Dan Enos was at Alabama for 1 year. You think people are going around saying Brandon Streeter made Trevor Lawrence who he is? Get out of here with that. I feel like just because it's Alabama, if you look at Dan Enos has since 1991 has stayed at a job for less than 2 years on average. Since 1991. You tell me this is a guy that's a coach that I want to have around? I mean, I don't know. I know that Tua had the numbers. Over almost 4,000 yards passing, over 40 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. I know Tua had it on the stat sheet. But if you look at Tua towards the end of the year, all he's doing is throwing the ball up. Prayers, he's making bad decisions. Clemson exposed him for exactly what he was, just a showboat who likes to throw deep balls all the time, and took advantage of. And Walt Deptula says this on the Roar all the time. Took advantage of an SEC that nobody will admit that has terrible pass defense and can't stop it. It has a bunch of terrible defenses, and everybody wants to say SEC tough, and it just really wasn't proved. Alabama steamrolled everybody. So how tough was that? They want to talk about how Alabama was so tired, and that's why they didn't beat Clemson. Tua was beating up everybody by 30-something points or more every game anyways. Yeah. So don't sit here and tell me that he was tired, and don't sit here and tell me that Dan Enos was the reason Tua was who he was. I think you're giving way too much credit to him. You look at the offensive coordinator positions Enos has had. He wasn't an offensive coordinator at Alabama. Mike Locksley was the offensive coordinator, right? Dan Enos is the offensive coordinator now. I think I look back, he was the last offensive coordinator at Arkansas back in like 2015. Wow, powerful offense that was, like 15-16 Arkansas. I'm not buying that this guy is like this savior offensive coordinator yet. And I'm definitely not buying that he is the guy that made Tua, because I think Tua was just good. And so I don't know what he's going to do with Jarren Williams. Hey, I give him the benefit of the doubt, obviously. I mean, we'll see when they play this Saturday. But all this hype around Dan Enos, it's scratching my head. Why is he getting all the credit for these guys that are doing it on the field? He's the quarterback coach. He wasn't even the offensive coordinator. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm not giving Dan Enos that credit yet. He needs to prove some more to me than just 1 year at Alabama, and all of a sudden he's some genius, right? But I think both teams are going to have a good matchup. I think it's going to be in the under. I don't remember what the under was offhand, but I didn't write it down. But I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I know that if you look at Miami last year, now they're going to be different this year, but they were kind of a slow playing team. Running out the clock before they hike every time, and I don't know if they're going to continue that or they're going to be more up tempo, right? But I look for Florida to win because I rely on defensive line. They both have good defensive lines, and then I rely on the quarterback play. Based on history, you have to go with Felipe Franks. So I'm taking Florida actually with given the 7.5. So I'm thinking Florida's going to win by more than 7.5.